Hi, everybody. My name is Chris Hickman, Chief Security Officer at Keyfactor, and welcome to the Digital Trust Talks, where we're really diving very deep into some of the topics that are shaping cryptography today, shaping the cybersecurity world, and impact your ability to deliver digital trust. I am really happy to introduce today's guest, who I've known for a number of years, and he has definitely seen in the industry as one of the go-to PKI veterans. Todd, welcome. Todd is from Unsung. He is the founder and CTO of Unsung. It's a niche consultancy, and they are known for very strategic PKI work, both in the UK, but also an expanding global footprint. So, Todd, welcome. Great to have you here today.
Yes, it's great to be here, and thanks for the opportunity to talk more PKI, one of my favorite topics.
Yeah, well, you and I have spent a lot of time over the years sharing a few laughs and talking PKI and trying to work with organizations to get them to understand the importance of PKI within the organization and how it's really one of the pillars of security. So I wanted to take today's topics and really talk about the sort of late breaking news, things that are happening in the industry, and get your perspective on some of them. So, we absolutely are seeing a shift within PKI and certificates in general. There's been a number of announcements of late around post-quantum cryptography and the evolution there. So, we'll move into probably the big question, which is we've seen obviously big announcements recently from the Googles and the IBMs of the world and a few others. Around how quantum computers are accelerating in development, and Google predicts that they have some 20x improvement over the original timeline, perhaps, to break cryptography. Just want to start by getting a little bit of your thoughts and inputs on where do you think we're at as it relates to a quantum computer that can break cryptography, and how is it really guiding today's conversations for you?
So those recent announcements, they at least to my mind, and at least talking to customers, have kind of, I guess, added some weight to the whole PQC sort of advice that we've been giving these organizations for quite some time. So, initially, maybe a year or so ago, it was like, you need to be aware of this, you need to start planning. And the next step was crypto discovery. But in that planning part, there's always that question, that overhanging question of, when will a post-quantum computer really turn up? Is it really going to be 2030? Is it going to be 2040? Will it be 20 never? That sort of thing. So the announcements by IBM and Google and them sort of like, penciling, I won't say pendant, but penciling in a date kind of gives that conversation a bit more weight. So now It's like, yeah, you really need to be like planning or have, your plan sort of at least halfway done, if not closer to the end. And yeah, you really should have started like crypto inventory, because the follow-up work is going to have to be done by that. I think it was 2029 IBM promised or said in their last announcement. That work's going to take some time. So yeah, I think it's a good thing.
Sort of on the back of all of the sort of post-quantum piece too, we've got the CAB forum announcements that they're going to move publicly rooted SSL certs down to 47 days in duration over the next couple of years. Seems to me that that is also going to be a significant change for organizations to adapt. What do you see organizations doing, and what should they be doing more or less of to really identify the gaps in their PKI and certificate landscape today, that they're not it just seems to me that there are a lot of organizations that are sort of still a little bit sitting on the sidelines, and time is running out. The clock is ticking. I'm just curious to get your thoughts on that and what you're seeing people do or not do.
I was going to say what we have seen, probably should see a bit more, is the organizations start to panic. So that announcement by the CAD forum, down to 46 a day, 5 times. Once again, I believe it's 2029. So that, I don't know whether it's just coincidental or these organizations bring out timelines and they seem to be coinciding with each other with dates. But no, it's sort of a bit of panic, then sort of explaining to them, how it affects a public PKI with PKI, and then how it might affect them internally. And it all leads back to how are you managing your PKI? Do you know where your certificates are? All the sort of, I guess, good hygiene, good practices that organizations should have had in place. They start to realize that they don't have in place in order to be prepared for these forthcoming dates. The 47-day TLS certs is almost like an entry gap about the first one.
And do you see this, a lot of this stuff just being noise? Yeah, are people actually starting to dig in your opinion, and take some of this a little more seriously, give it a bit more priority, some of the funding, or do you think there's still just a lot of noise? And with all of these announcements that are being made, is it helping to move the problem space forward, or is it just creating more noise on top of noise to the point where people are just plugging their ears once again?
So I think it's creating more momentum, and slowly sort of separating the wheat from the chaff, or the noise filter, getting some fine tuning. When these announcements come out, we have a lot of our customers come back to us and go, right, what's your take? Should I, how serious is this? Is this noise, or is this something with a bit more meaning? And that, for a lot of our customers, we sit in that trusted advisor role, so they're like, no, this one kind of means that you should take heed and sort of move along on your PQC journey.
But then we also saw last week, I think probably one of the most substantial announcements around PQC. That actually didn't get a ton of airplay, but I think you'll agree that it's a significant announcement. And if you don't, let's have that conversation too. I'd love to understand why. But that would be Apple announcing that they are going to be supporting post-quantum cryptography in their OS 26 suite of products. And so you'll now see PQC enabled Safari and other things, and other developers being able to leverage the crypto toolkit that they have to do post-quantum cryptography. To me, that's big, because I look around, I see so many people using Apple devices. It sort of brings a validity to the fact that this stuff is coming no matter what. Just curious to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I thought that announcement was really cool, to be honest. So like seeing someone like an Apple, where obviously a lot of people are users of their devices in the workspace, in the creative spaces in particular, knowing that they're moving, carte blanche, they're 26, like you say, they're OS 26 level of products are all going to be supporting it. Yeah, to me that was really cool, because it sort of, it now also adds a bit more, I guess, substance to those that have started PQC planning, in terms of, right, in our PQC plan, obviously there's the PKI bit, we issue certs and we've got the new algorithms, but really the flip side of the coin is those end user devices, end user applications. Can they make sense of it? Can they use that cryptography? So when you have a big manufacturer like an Apple, and in fairness, Microsoft sort of announced shortly thereafter about Windows 11 getting a similar upgrade. It's like when those end devices can now support the use of those certs, because they've got the right crypto libraries baked in, the right capability, and that I think it's really cool. But like you say, it was a bit of a strange one, because it came out and I was like, man, that's awesome, and then didn't really see much. I haven't been flooded with too much of the marketing or anything, so it sort of slightly slipped under the radar, I thought.
Typical type of announcement, right? The liquid screen, because it's cool and tangible, and I can touch it, got all the attention, and the actual security that's going to make that something that's not a liability to the organization kind of just got a little side mention somewhere. So, but that's why we work in security. We don't do it for the glamour of the situation. We do it because it's a necessary requirement for the world to continue to do what it does. So. For those of you out there thinking of going into cybersecurity, don't do it for the glamour. You'll be very disappointed. So, but the other thing, I had the pleasure last week of being with some industry folks. So first and foremost, I was actually really surprised. Gentleman from Cloudflare gave a presentation, and some 30 to 40% of the traffic over the internet is already supporting post-quantum cryptography today through Quip and other things between Google and Cloudflare interface. So they're obviously expecting upon general release of Safari supporting it for that traffic to probably exceed 80% of the total traffic over the internet, which I think is fascinating that we're that far ahead in public networks. But yeah, I'm just wondering why private networks aren't getting the same kind of attention for organizations to go ahead and do it. Yeah, when do you think the cutoff date is, right, of too late? This is a conversation that I like to have with people, right, because it's very subjective. But yeah, and people ask me when Q day is, and my standard answer is yesterday. And they look at me like I'm a three-headed monster, and I challenge them and say, "Prove to me it's not," right? Because we just don't know. I'm curious to get your thoughts on the whole, when is too late to start making these transitions? I mean, we know 2029 is going to be 47-day certs, so we've got to do. Organizations have to do something about that. But then layer on top the post-quantum, which seems to fall into a similar time frame. What's the cutoff date? What's the best before date to start your project, in your opinion?
I like the yesterday comment on that. I completely agree with you on that one. What I tend to sort of, I previously was going from 2030, but now I'll just that to 2029. But if you've got quite a lot of work, say migration, a lot of like new versions of apps, everything to support, argument's sake, 2 to 3 years, to start of 2028, 2027, right? And you think, well, to do that work, you've got to put in a fair bit of planning, and they put another year to 18 months. I kind of think you need to be fairly well along, at least have your plan sorted, possibly by the end of this year, so you can start in earnest next year. It's 2026. That'd give you 3 to 4 years to line that up. It's kind of one of those ones where like if you're running the race and you're not up to speed, in my mind, you don't just fall back a little bit, you fall back a lot. It's almost like you're running in reverse, right? If you're thinking, oh no, I'll put that planning type stuff off, or work on, looking for our crypto inventory, or what I started using the phrase. I know there's like crypto ability is one of the phrases out there. I tend to think of crypto ability as in how can my apps be upgraded to be able to make use of this stuff. You probably need to survey all your business sort of high priority apps and that thing. If you're not started, or at least a fair way down that path come start of next year, midway through next year, then you're starting to fall behind, and you're kind of putting the car into reverse, right? So yeah, it's not quite too late yet, but it's not far away, I don't think.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, mileage will vary depending on the size and the complexity of your organization and all of those other factors. But I think that's very good advice for everybody. If you don't have a plan sort of going into 2026, you're likely going to be left behind. So, a reason for organizations to take action and get better educated and go from there. So, just in the last little question here, I want to sort of swing things over to one of the interesting things every time I get together with smart people like yourself, and we're sitting around and talking, we eventually get to war stories, and let me tell you about this time so I'm going to put you on the spot here, and no naming names because we want to protect the guilty or the innocent, depending on how you look at it. But share with us the one thing that you found in your career, the one situation that's happened that just completely made you go, why did you even bother trying that in the first place? So, what's the most egregious thing you've ever seen done with PKI? Just if you could share that story with us, and make sure that others don't follow in that footstep.
Yeah. There's one in particular that comes to mind, and it was kind of a case of it's a case of the customer trying to do the right thing, but just sort of going down the wrong paths, left, right, and center. They were having trouble with their PKI. It was the usual thing of like a lot of admin overhead and all of that. And as we lifted sort of the lid on the can and had a look around, we discovered little things, or little things that turned out to be quite big things. Such as they were doing the right thing by using an HSM by the CA, but it was misconfigured in the sense that when the installation went through, it was still pointing at like a software crypto module as opposed to the actual HSM they spent a lot of time setting up.
So they
Sort of
basically
so
had
still
a lovely trophy sitting above their PKI that was not actually doing anything.
A rather expensive one. and they had all the right processes in place and procedures. So they're going, look at this. We take monthly backups. We do all the right stuff. And you go, yep, you are, but you're not actually using it, unfortunately. And then there was just a simple step, on the implementation of their CA, of their issuing CA at the time, that sort of thing. And there was a couple other little things as well. It was at a time where it was sort of, there wasn't as much automation and there was a lot more human involvement in terms of verifying an identity and issuing that certificate but they'd kind of taken the, I guess, compliance part of having a human issue a cert and having it been quite mandrolic to every process just about. So things like CRL issuance, they could have had it a bit more automated, but they made it very mandrolic, including the sort of publishing of it to certain points and things like that. So yeah, we went through and went, it kind of was one of those ones where the best intentions, and they they were doing the right thing, but just not in the right way. And that when we showed them a few simple things like your CA can actually push that CRL out to your web server or your repository that you need to without having to do it as a manual process, or we're going to have to rebuild that issuing CA so that your keys are created and have their entire lifetime in that HSM, that sort of thing. That they were fine, but yeah, that was sort of the one that immediately comes to mind. It was sort of best intentions and trying to do the best thing, but without the right expertise, talking to the right, I guess, industry players, you can easily go down the wrong path.
And I think that that is a great story to help wrap us up here. That the PKI is a little nuanced sometimes, and not for the general practitioner to attempt to master. And with that, it's important, like everything, that some of the takeaways that we had today, right? Post quantum is coming, 47-day certs are coming. All of this stuff is coming at you very quickly. The right people, the right processes, the right partners to be able to make these things happen, so that you're putting your organization on solid footing and not introducing additional risks. So with that, Todd, I wanted to thank you very much for participating today. Yourself and your team at Unsung have been great partners with us, and we appreciate your partnership. And we would love to have you back at a different time or at another time, to continue the conversation. So with that, be sure to follow Keyfactor on LinkedIn. We'll be back with more episodes of the Digital Trust Talk soon. If you have any comments or anything you'd like to share, please feel free to drop that in the comments, and we will take it back and have the conversation. But from now on until we see you next, have a great day.